So in this video, I'm going to quickly run through the card decks feature, which we've only just recently added and gives a lot of power and flexibility in what you can do with game cards. We've also added some documentation to it as well, or about it, sorry. So here I'm in our docs site, which you can find the links elsewhere. If we go under user guide, there's now a section on card decks, taking you through creating a deck, adding cards to the deck, duplicating and selecting and viewing decks, which we'll go through now very quickly. And as we've got here, card decks offer great flexibility for organising and storing a subset of all your cards based on whatever theme or criteria you like, and they can be very much temporary that you use for one session or something that lasts and you reuse over and over again. So previously, really filtering was the only way to narrow down all your cards. So you can see here we're kind of in the main deck at the moment, or we've got the full deck of cards, which is 16 in this game zone. And so in the past, maybe we've got a couple that are about shooting, so we could start to filter by title or description, and that would narrow the deck down, but that was a manual process. Or if you'd start to use maybe hashtags, you could in your descriptions for your cards, you could start to filter and search by those as well. Which you can still do, but you've now got the higher level card decks to add more structure and organisation. So now we see up here at the top, the card decks with a little arrow pointing to the right. So if we hit that, we see a slide out panel on the right side, and we're going to create a new deck. And again, just sticking with the basketball theme, we're going to make this cards related to shooting. All we really need is the name for the deck for the moment, and we can leave everything else and save that. We now see here in our card deck list that we've got one deck, but it's got 0 cards at the moment. So if we try to select and view it, it's going to say you need at least one card in the deck to do that. Makes sense. So let's populate it. We go over here to the little list icon to see how many cards we have, which we know at the moment is 0, and more importantly and relevant for us, to add cards. So we can see all our 16 cards from our full deck are all listed here at the moment because we haven't added any. And we can just select any one of those individually if we like to start adding them to the deck. So for example, let's look for one. Here's one that is about shooting. So I hit Ultimate Shooter. We now have one card in the deck called Ultimate Shooter. I can see the description of that to remember what the task or challenge is related to Ultimate Shooter. And I can keep adding them manually like that. Equally, at any time, I can click the cross to remove cards from the deck that I've added. But another really useful feature is to start, again, using the filtering function to start to narrow down cards. So again, I'm now searching for all cards that maybe mention shot or shooting. We've got 2 there, and now if we say add all, we can add all our cards related to shooting, only 2 in this case, to the deck. We now might be happy with that. And so now we've got 2 cards in our shooting deck, and we can now select that. And with that selected, it has the name of the deck up the top. You can see now we've got 2 cards that relate to shooter, so an ultimate shooter and an on-target card as well. At any point, we can clear the deck back out by clicking on the cross. We then see the card decks option appear again. You can also just click on the name of the deck if you just want to bring up the card deck list and select another deck, or let's create a new deck. So another thing we might do is we just want a random deck. So let's call it Lucky Dip deck. And we just every day maybe want to populate this with just some random cards and use it in a session. So let's save that. And so rather than selecting specific cards here or filtering and selecting for specific ones, we just want to add some random cards. And so we've got 16, so let's say 10 will do us good. So we're going to add 10 random cards, and then we now see that there's 10 cards in the deck. We select the Lucky Dip deck, and we've now got those 10 random cards. To make it even more random, then when we're using them, we can shuffle them. Essentially changes what the top card will be, and then the order of the ensuing cards in the deck as well. And again, we can still filter to narrow these down even further, these 10 cards, if we have certain, again, criteria, hashtags, whatever we might want to use. So that's still in play. Let's also, for our lucky dip, actually let's do it for our shooting deck. If we need to go back into edit, remember here's where we add and remove cards, but if we click the pencil icon, it's add an avatar or a logo for this deck. Some kids playing street basketball and shooting. Let's save that. And now when I select this deck, we see the name of the deck up the top, and the Game Cards app logo or banner is replaced by whatever you selected as the avatar for that deck. So that's a way to distinguish when there's a deck selected and what one it is, not just by the fact there'll probably be less cards available in a deck than the full deck, but also by the image. And if now when we say deselect that card deck, we see the Game Cards app icon reappear. So that's a handy little clue about whether you've got a deck selected or not. And then the last couple of things to show, one is how to duplicate a deck. So let's go back to our shooting deck that we created early, and let's say we want to duplicate that and again make it basketball specific. It's not just about all shooting, it's just going to be outside shooting and cards related to shooting from outside the 3-point arc. So here we have our duplicate card deck icon that we're going to click, and that straight away creates a copy or duplicate of that shooting deck. So then we can go back into it, let's rename it, and we'll call it now outside shooting deck. Let's just remove that avatar icon as well for now. And we've got 2 cards in there, but our ultimate shooter is the only one that relates to actually shooting from outside the arc. So we remove our on target, and obviously now, so this just creates a starting point that we could add now more cards to or make it more specific. So that ability to duplicate or copy decks gives you a head start in that regard. The other thing you may have picked up when we're in giving the deck a name and an avatar and description is the ability to make it private. So if you make a private deck, or if you have multiple people in your game zone and they go into the card deck list, they won't see any decks you've made private, only you'll be able to see it. Equally, as more and more people in your game zone create card decks, if you've allowed that and given them permission to, you might just want to filter and show just your decks in that list, and as well, like in other places in the app, you can filter or search by the deck name or description as well. So I think that's just about it. As said, the docs are there as well to go through and help you, and we'd love to hear how you get on with card decks.